I still remember the exact moment my stomach dropped, not from turbulence, not from the long day of airports and stale pretzels, but from a single, stupid suitcase. The kind of mistake that feels small until you realize it can change your whole life. We had just landed at Harborview International, and I was doing that tired mom math in my head, like, if I buy one sandwich now, can I still afford the rideshare later? Can I stretch what's left until the interview tomorrow? Can I pretend I'm not scared out of my mind? My daughter Emma was half asleep on my hip, her little arms around my neck, her cheeks still warm from the airplane nap, and she kept murmuring that she was hungry. I told her we'd eat soon. We just needed our bag. That bag had everything I owned that mattered for the next 24 hours. My only blazer, the printed resume copies, the cheap heels I'd bought off clearance, Emma's extra clothes, her medication, even my lucky hair clip, the one silly thing I kept because it made me feel like I still had a plan. At baggage claim, the carousel started spitting out luggage like a slot machine. People crowded around, grabbing, spinning, leaving. Emma tugged my sleeve, whining. I was so tired my eyes kept burning. I saw a hard-shell suitcase come around, navy, similar shape to mine, and my brain said grab it and go. I yanked it off, felt the weight, and for a few seconds I actually felt relief. Then I looked down and my throat went dry. The suitcase wasn't mine. Mine was scuffed fabric with a broken zipper and a strip of duct tape near the handle. This one was sleek, graphite grey, the kind of case that looks like it belongs to someone who drinks sparkling water without thinking about the price. The tag on the handle wasn't my name. It read, D. Whitaker. I froze. Emma looked up at me and said, Mom, are we going to eat now? I could barely answer. All I could think was, my bag is gone. My interview bag is gone. Someone out there just picked up my whole future by accident, and I was standing here holding a stranger's expensive suitcase like a criminal in a bad movie. I spun around, scanning faces, trying to spot someone looking equally panicked. Nothing. Just people rolling their wheels away into the terminal like nothing had happened. I did what you do when you're broke and exhausted and trying not to cry in public. I pulled the suitcase closer, sat Emma on the floor for a second, and called the airline baggage desk. After 20 minutes of being bounced around and listening to hold music that sounded like a dentist's office, they told me the obvious. You can file a report. A report. Like my interview was going to wait politely for a report. I gathered Emma back up, pushed through the terminal, and took a rideshare to the cheapest motel I could find that didn't have bars on the windows. My hands were shaking the whole time, but I kept my voice calm for Emma, because moms learn how to panic quietly. In the motel room, I finally set the wrong suitcase on the bed and stared at it like it might talk. Emma was playing with her stuffed turtle, humming softly, still trusting that I would handle things, and I hated that trust for a second because it felt so heavy. I thought about opening the suitcase. I didn't want to. That felt wrong. But I also needed to know if there was a clue inside, a phone number, a business card, anything. My fingers hovered over the zipper like it was a line I didn't want to cross. Before I could decide, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer because unknown numbers usually mean collectors or scams. But something told me to pick up. Ms. Reyes? A man's voice said, calm, careful. I'm sorry to call this late. My name is Daniel Whitaker. I believe we may have a luggage mix-up. My lungs emptied like someone had punched me. Yes, I said, and my voice cracked. Yes, I have your suitcase. I grabbed it by mistake. My bag is I swallowed. My bag is gone. I know, he said quickly. I found your tag at the carousel. Your suitcase isn't with me, but I'm working on tracking it. Are you and your little one okay tonight? That question hit me harder than it should have. Nobody in that airport cared if I was okay. The airline didn't care. The motel clerk barely cared. But this stranger asked like it mattered. I didn't know what to do with that. I'm fine, I lied automatically, because that's what you say when you're not fine. There was a pause, then he said, I'm sending something to the front desk. Food. If that's all right. It's late and you sound worn out. I opened my mouth to refuse, because pride is a stubborn thing, but the words wouldn't come. Emma had been hungry for hours. I finally said, You don't have to do that. I know, he replied. I want to. 10 minutes later, there was a knock. The motel clerk handed me a paper bag from a diner and a small envelope. Inside were 2 warm grilled cheese sandwiches, fries, and 2 little cups of chocolate pudding. Emma squealed like it was Christmas. I stared at the bag like it was proof the world hadn't completely turned against me. The envelope had a simple note in neat handwriting. Ms. Reyes, I'm sorry for the chaos. Please eat something and get some rest. Tomorrow at 11:30 a.m., I'll be in the lobby of the Belmorn Hotel to exchange bags and make sure you have what you need for your interview. No strings attached. Daniel. No strings attached is the kind of phrase that makes someone like me suspicious. When you've lived on tight margins long enough, help rarely shows up without a hook. But Emma was laughing with pudding on her lip, and my body was so tired it felt like I was sinking into the mattress. I told myself I'd meet him, get my bag back, and that would be it. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text. A driver is on the way. I'll make sure you get to the Belmorn on time. I stared at it like it was written in another language. A driver. For me. I looked around my motel room, the peeling paint, the thin curtains, my wrinkled clothes, and I felt that old, familiar sting, the feeling that I was about to walk into a place where people like me weren't supposed to exist. A black sedan pulled up outside, clean enough to reflect the sky. The driver stepped out, opened the door, and said, Ms. Reyes, I'm Paul. Mr. Whitaker asked me to take you to the hotel. Emma climbed in like it was an adventure. I climbed in like I was borrowing someone else's life. The Belmorn was one of those hotels with marble floors and soft lighting and a scent in the air that probably has its own brand name. I held Emma's hand and tried not to look like I belonged in the lost and found. Then I saw him walking toward us, tall, composed, dressed in a simple suit that didn't scream for attention but still looked expensive. He had that calm confidence that comes from never having to check a bank app before ordering lunch. But his face wasn't smug. It was focused, almost concerned. Ms. Reyes, he said warmly. I'm Daniel. And this must be Emma. Emma peeked from behind my leg, then nodded. Daniel crouched slightly so he was at her level. Emma. I heard you've had a long travel day. Emma didn't answer, but she squeezed my fingers, and that was a way of saying she felt safe. We sat in a quiet corner of the lobby. I slid his suitcase toward him. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he asked, Can you tell me what was in your bag, specifically what you need for today? My interview clothes, I said, embarrassed. My documents, her medicine, my everything. Daniel nodded, then motioned for someone across the lobby, a woman with a tablet who moved like she knew exactly where she was going. He spoke to her softly, and she nodded and walked away. I've already contacted airport security and the airline manager, he said. They're pulling footage from the baggage claim. We have the timestamp of the swap. It may take a few hours, but we are going to find your suitcase. The word "we" made me look up. You don't have to do that, I said again, sharper this time, because I didn't want to owe him. He met my eyes. I know, but I'm doing it anyway. Then he did something that made my stomach twist again. He opened his suitcase and checked inside, quick and discreet, like he was confirming something. He closed it and exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. That's intact. I frowned. What is in there? He hesitated, then looked around, lowering his voice. This is going to sound strange, but I need you to hear it from me before you hear it from anyone else. I was carrying donor funds. Not from a bank. From a private pledge collection. It's cash. I blinked. Cash. Like dash. Like a lot, he said gently. And it's meant for a specific purpose. A children's medical wing in Harbour View. Equipment that can't wait on bureaucratic delays. My brain tried to stack that information somewhere sensible and failed. The idea of carrying that kind of money in a suitcase felt insane. But his voice didn't sound like a liar's. It sounded like someone trying to keep control of a mess. Why would you do it that way? I whispered. Because sometimes the system is slower than the need, he said, and for a second his polished calm cracked. And because I made a mistake trusting certain people. Right then, my phone buzzed. A news alert. My heart jumped because that's what happens when you're already scared. The headline made my hands go cold. Breaking. Investigators question businessman Daniel Whitaker over hospital charity funds. I read it twice, then a third time, like it would change. Another notification followed, claiming misused donations, a possible internal probe, his name highlighted like a target. Daniel watched my face and knew instantly. You saw it, he said quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind spun. This man sent my kid dinner. He arranged a driver. He's telling me about money for sick children. And now the news is saying he's the villain. I know what it looks like, he said, voice steady, but you could hear the anger underneath. I'm not stealing. I'm being framed. Someone inside that organization is laundering funds, and I pushed too hard to audit it. This is retaliation. I wanted to believe him. I also wanted to protect my child and walk away from whatever rich people nightmare this was. Why should I trust you? I asked, and my voice sounded small. Daniel didn't flinch. You shouldn't trust anyone blindly, he said. Not me, not a headline. But you can trust facts. And facts are what I'm trying to pull into the light. Before I could respond, the lobby doors opened and 2 people in plain clothes stepped in, scanning. Not security guards. Not tourists. Their posture was different. Purposeful. Daniel's jaw tightened. They're here. My heart started racing. Emma squeezed my hand, sensing the shift. One of the agents approached. Mr. Whitaker. We need to speak with you. Daniel stood slowly, then looked at me. If they ask you anything, tell the truth. You took the wrong suitcase. You returned it. That's it. You don't owe me anything. But my eyes flicked to Emma, then to my own ruined situation, my missing suitcase, my interview in a few hours, and something in me snapped into clarity. I'd spent years being underestimated, ignored, treated like background noise. And now, by pure accident, I was standing in the middle of a story where truth mattered, and I had a front row seat. I took a breath and stood too. Excuse me, I said to the agents, and my voice surprised even me. I'm the person whose suitcase was swapped with his. I can confirm the timeline, the baggage claim location, and the exact moment I realized the tag didn't match. Also, if you want to know who benefits from this, you should look at who had access to the baggage footage and the charity's internal travel schedule. Daniel looked at me, stunned. The agents paused. One of them asked, why are you saying that? Because I'd done one thing the last 12 months taught me to do, when you're trying to survive. You look for patterns. You look for who's rushing you, who's pressuring you, who's trying to control the narrative. Delaney from the HOA did it with lies. The news does it with headlines. But truth doesn't rush. Truth waits for receipts. Over the next hours, things moved fast. Too fast. The hotel manager confirmed the security footage timestamp. The airline admitted a baggage handler had flagged the wrong carousel tag. And the biggest break came from the one person nobody was watching, a mid-level director from the charity who showed up acting overly helpful, overly smooth, volunteering to sort everything out. I recognized that energy immediately. It was the same energy as a landlord who swears he'll fix the heater tomorrow. The same energy as someone who's lying politely. I told the agent what I noticed, the way that director kept trying to separate Daniel from his phone, kept insisting they move the conversation out of camera view, kept repeating the phrase for everyone's comfort. The agent's eyes sharpened. They pulled records. They asked the right questions. And suddenly, that director was the one sweating. By late afternoon, my suitcase was found. Not lost. Not stolen by a stranger. Rerouted. Deliberately. It was sitting in a back office at the airport, tag peeled off, contents half disturbed like someone had searched it. My interview folder was still there, wrinkled but intact. Emma's medicine was still sealed. I almost cried right there in the airport office, not because it was dramatic, but because I was so tired of life being one long almost. Daniel was cleared that week, not with a flashy press conference, but with quiet paperwork and a statement that the investigation had shifted to internal leadership. The news never screams as loud when they're wrong as they do when they're accusing. But it didn't matter. The truth landed. And me. I went to that interview anyway. Hair still frizzy from stress. Blazer still creased. But I walked in with a spine I didn't have a day earlier. I got the job, not because Daniel pulled strings, but because I was qualified and I didn't crumble. The hiring director even said, I heard you had an airport situation. You still showed up. That tells me something. A few weeks later, Daniel invited me to a small cafe. Nothing fancy, no marble floors, just normal coffee and a corner table where Emma could color. He looked tired in a human way, like someone who'd learned something sharp about the world he lived in. I owe you an apology, he said. Not for the suitcase, for dragging you into any of it. I shook my head. You didn't drag me. Life did. You just didn't ignore me. He smiled, small and real. I'd like to start over.
No chaos.
No hotels.
No headlands.
Just a real date, if you're open to it. I stared at him for a second, then laughed, because it was the first time in a while I could. A real date, I repeated. With a rule. What rule? No suitcases, I said. Ever. He lifted his hands in surrender. Deal. Now I want to ask you something, because people are going to argue about this and I want to hear it. If you were me, would you have trusted him, or would you have walked away the second you saw that headline? And be honest, how many times have you seen someone get labeled guilty because the story was more convenient than the truth? Drop your take in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from, because I read more of these than you think. If you want more stories where one ordinary moment turns into a life fork you didn't ask for, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. The next one is about a woman who found a wedding ring in a thrift store coat pocket, and what it led to still doesn't sit right with me.